Hey guys, how are you getting on? Happy New Year to you. Hope all the heads are okay today. I am still very much on a rollover, which is, in case you're wondering why I've got this mug, which is certainly not coffee. I asked Chris if I could toast you all and toast the new year with a glass, and he started to cry because, contrary to popular belief, I'm not floating around in a nebula somewhere. There is a lot of green behind me, and glass and green. Not a good mix, but cheers to you all. Happy New Year. Thank you so much for all of the support that you've shown the channel this year. Thanks for making me feel very welcome. Very, very, very much appreciated. So, oh yeah, that's not coffee. Alright, the episode kicks off with an up and with a great opening scene this week. It's actually really, really well paced. It's well plotted. We looked at it last week with that preview scene that came out in the Ready Room on CBS, and it's when the Viridian is seemingly chasing and trying to destroy the Discovery. Now obviously we know that the Orions have taken over the Discovery, the Emerald Chain I should say. It's just hard to forget those lovely Orions considering they're the same colour as what I'm standing in front of. They're flying toward Federation HQ, and you cut to Vance and Willa discussing, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to let them in? Are we going to not let them in? Because from their point of view, they see one of their own ships, you know, kind of in need of help. Seems like an idea would be to potentially launch a ship or two. Oh my, put a pin in that. We're coming back to that one. What they do decide to do in the end is that they're going to let Discovery in. All right, they decide to go weapons hot initially. But as Osira on the Bridge of Discovery rightly reckons, they're not going to abandon one of their own. This is potentially one of the first times we've seen, yeah, actually, okay, hang on. We are dealing with Starfleet here. We are dealing with, you know, we're not going to leave one of our own in trouble, because the season has been a little bit all over the place in how they've depicted the Federation. Remember that pin we did a second ago? Hang on to that pin. It's tied in with that one. What we do cut back to is zooming through subspace. You've got Book and Burnham on Book's wonderful little morphing ship, and it's cool for two reasons. One, it's a morphing ship, that's deadly, but also for another reason is that we finally get to see the subspace that had been destroyed by the Gorn. Now we heard about this all the way back in episode 1 when Book tells Burnham about the Gorn. They did their experiments, they blew up subspace. Well, here's what it actually means. It's not as much they've blown it up, it still exists, it's just full of debris. There's a Wanderer class starship, parts of it anyway, floating right in front of them. It is dangerous trying to get through this. For the first time this season, we kind of get an answer to, well, okay, right, warp drive is out, why not use slipstream? We get an answer to that. It might have come too late, but it contributes to a very, very, very strong opening scene. They come out of subspace, they can't hail Federation HQ because communications are being blocked by the Viridian. Yep, they decide to zoom right up the arse of Discovery, straight into their shuttle bay. It's a bloody good scene. It's properly tense, and it really sets the tone for the episode that follows. That whole opening scene, that is one fantastic up from me this week. Once the credits pass and we see the lovely Jonathan Frakes is directing again. Okay, the reason I have a beard is because of it. Anyway, we then the action rolls back just a little bit because Vance kind of twigs a little bit of what's going on. Okay? And also, they get hailed by Osira. So, it kind of flips the script a little bit. So, initially you're thinking, oh, hang on, right, they've wrong-footed us. What is this going to be? What's the story here? What's Osira's plan? Vance lets me down a little bit here. Okay, this is going to be a down, but bear with me, right? So, they talk, they agree, Osira's going to come into Federation HQ, and does it feel a bit forced to anyone else when Vance is standing there going, yeah, the Federation president said, it's fine, you look after this. Now, as the CNC of Starfleet, don't get me wrong, I totally understand the idea of the military taking point on this one, although they should have a negotiator, but okay. But it's the way that it's handled, it's the way that he brings it up. It's, you know, oh, the Federation president said I could do this. All right then, that's a bit weird, but fair enough. But it was enough to get it down out of me because it just felt like it was why hang a lampshade on that? You could be just fine by just having, look, it's going to be Vance, it's going to be Osira, it's grand. Don't do any nonsense about that. Unless something's going to come out of that. So that is one of my famous downs with an asterisk. Alright? I didn't like it in the context of the episode. I may revise that as we go along. We'll come back to that one, alright? We'll come back to it. Having said what I've just said, I really enjoyed the interplay between Vance and Osira in this episode. Oded Fair and Janet Kidder really seemed to gel off each other very, very well. For a very short time, I was reminded strongly of the Star Wars prequels. It's like, oh look, trade negotiations. Oh, that's fun. But this whole thing gives the Emerald Chain a bit of depth, sort of up until maybe the end of the last episode, but definitely this episode. The Emerald Chain were the baddies. Oh. What was their reason for anything, really? Here, they seem to be approaching the Federation to become the Federation. This whole scene gets an up from me. I really like the way that they speak to each other. And look, it's possible, it's all an act, and certain actions later in the episode do support that idea, but technically we've got an electronic lie detector, a hologram called Eli. I'm sorry, I like the simple things. I like them, it's fun. She seems to be telling the truth, and if we take her at prosthetic face value, that's kind of interesting. It gives them something else. He addresses the questions of slavery. He addresses the questions of what they did to Kwai Jean. He addresses the questions of the labour markets. You know, there's no sort of light-footing around this. You know, he talks to her straight, and she talks to him straight. She owns everything that he says. She does, however, say that she herself is against slavery, and she passes Eli's test. So okay, so maybe there's more to Osira, because what do we really know about Osira up to this point? Well, we know that she has a fearsome reputation. We know that she is sort of an ends to a means kind of person. We know that stealing another ship is par for the course. Who really cares? When it's the spore drive that really interests her, and absolutely fair enough as not a method, that's the wrong word, but as a drive, spore drive, as a reason for doing this. It actually makes complete sense. The spore drive would revolutionize travel. Never mind the fact that it would then replace dilithium as fuel. It would replace warp drive as a method of travel. It would also allow the galaxy to become a much smaller place, which of course Discovery can nip from Alpha, Beta, Delta, wherever they want to, really, which is cool, and something we hope that as the show goes on they will show more of when you have time to show more of these things. But if every ship could do that, well, you could have, I don't know, open trade routes between Ni'Var and the Kazon. You could have, you know, the Talaxians could interact with the Bajorans. You know, this is something that we would like to see. It would sort of bring Star Trek full circle a little bit. So that totally okay as a drive. Again, understandably, Vance is not massively on board with the idea of the Emerald Chain having this technology because of the obvious security risks that it poses. They can jump in anywhere. You know, if they want to, they can jump into Federation HQ or, you know, restricted sections. So yes, this is an understandable butting of heads, but it's actually a conversation. It's not mustache-twirlingly evil people going, bah. Vance does manage to get one of the lines of the episode. It's sort of cringe even to think about it, but Osira's talking about how good an apple tastes. And Vance says, yeah, you know it's made of our right? That's what we process our into. And the look on Janet Kidder's face as she takes that out of her mouth, really, really good. I got a proper belly laugh from that one. So yeah, pretty much everything that happens in that room, up to and including the point where he says he would be well on board with the Emerald Chain and the Federation, you know, having some sort of alliance, having an understanding, maybe coming together, as long as Osira agrees to stand trial for what she's done. That was good storytelling. That was a good character arc there. I'm on board with that. Everything about the scene for me, up. Janet Kidder, right? So when she was first introduced as a sort of a mean face on the screen, before obviously getting a little bit fleshed out in The Sanctuary and a little bit fleshed out last week, was, you know, she was aloof. She wasn't there. She was the threat that was off screen, kinda. So you didn't really get anything to play with, really, you know? There was no understanding. She was just a baddie. This episode kind of turns that around. The writing is good, but also Janet Kidder herself is getting an up from me this week, because she manages to show nuance in her character. Yes, she does some bad things. One, she takes over Discovery. Okay, bold, it's not yours, give it back. Then she manages to get into Federation HQ. You know what? Fair play. Then she agrees to sit down and talk, which is like, okay, wasn't expecting that. You know, we were expecting her to maybe go in and, you know, beam a torpedo into Federation, you know, chambers or something, but she doesn't do that. So when she's interacting with Aurelio, and you see a genuine tenderness there, and when she then later does something that I'll discuss in a few minutes and I'm still not okay about it, you know, you're almost getting whiplash a little bit, going, hang on. She is portraying a leader who is in, you know, in quite a desperate situation. Yes, the Emerald Chain seems to be doing okay for itself, but they're still very much on the back foot, and will be as long as Discovery is the only ship with a spore drive. She's got a dog in this game. She needs to win. She needs to come out on top. Now, does she have an ego? Abso-bloody-lutely she does. Hence, when Vance puts her up and says, listen, you got to stand trial for your crimes here, she's like, yeah, solid pass. But she's hardly the only character in history to have ever reacted that way. And she comes from that conversation to her very, very bold act. You know, so I think Janet Kidder absolutely nails it this week. Now, it looks like we're going to get plenty more of her next week, so fingers crossed that she continues to just deliver what she has been delivering. Yeah, really, really solid guest star. Really enjoyed her this week. You know, she gave Osira a reason for being, so as I said, massive up there. I said last week how much I was looking forward to having Kenneth Mitchell in this episode, and I am so happy to say that I was not disappointed by that. Kenneth Mitchell gets an absolute up from me this week. First of all, totally great to see him, as in actually see him. Before we saw him in heavy prosthetics, he was Cole Shah, and he was Tenavik. Thank you, Paul, for that. And now we get to see him with a lovely beard, if I do say so myself. And his interaction with Stamets it's really, really interesting. Here is a scientist who is potentially inadvertently on the side of the devils, believing he's on the side of the angels. I mean, he was born into this, you know, so evil is a point of view, and I use evil very, very loosely there as a term, because again, it depends where you're standing. And he is standing, he sees the good that the Emerald Chain has brought to the galaxy as he sees it, and he tries to tell this to Stamets. Now, Stamets obviously is really, really struggling with the idea that Culber is still back in the nebula, and every moment that they delay, Culber is getting sicker and sicker. And he does try to engage with Aurelio about family. He sees Aurelio has tattoos here, which is a mark of, you know, one for each of your children in Orion society. Now, while it's never out and out stated who Aurelio is with, it's certainly implied that maybe Aurelio and Osira have a family together, because he really struggles with the idea of the dark deeds that she's done. He plays it so well that you can see that he's bothered, but he's not necessarily overcome by it. And again, that would be a stand as to, you know, he grew up in this society. I'm sure anyone who grows up in a society where you really have to fight to stay alive, you sort of get to understand when, you know, Machiavellian tactics are called into play. So Kenneth Mitchell nails it for me this week. Didn't like to see him getting shot. Bad Burnham, but no. But it was really, really good. And then when he's on the bridge later on as well, you can see his genuine concern to Osira's actions, but also she does say, you're free to stay and watch if you want to. I'd rather you didn't. But she's not hiding anything from him. We've seen in one episode way more depth to the Emerald Chain from Osira and from Aurelio than we have for the entire season. I mean, it's a wider breadth. It's really, really, really good. And also, if Kenneth Mitchell, if Aurelio is their top scientist, if he's the one who interacted with Discovery systems, and if he's the one who threw up that lovely little Emerald Chain emblem, you know what, fair play. You've earned that one. I like that one a lot. Did everyone else enjoy Die Hard on Discovery this week? Because that's what this episode was. This is great. They managed to get away with, alright, and you can thank Chris for this one, for spotting this one. They managed to get 4 Christmas episodes in December. We had 2 Christmas episodes which were terra firma, lots of snow everywhere, it was all lovely, and they were all wearing lovely decorations in their mirror universe stuff. Last week then we had a nice snowy landscape and it was all lovely. It was definitely winter, it was great, it was cool. This week we have Die Hard, which is a Christmas film, and you are free to comment like that you disagree with that, but you're wrong. But this was great. Like, obviously Burnham takes the McLean role here and she's crawling through Jeffrey's tubes, and like, she does sell it. She has the fight with the soldier that I really enjoyed. I thought that was a really well choreographed fight. You know, she takes him down and he gets back up again, like you would in a real fight. Now don't get me wrong, I enjoy the El Palm punch that Riker always did, that you can be standing across a room and still knock somebody out. Whereas this is like, oh no, oh no, get a gun, please, oh dear, oh heavens. And anyway, she manages to get him in a leg lock to try and knock the guy out, and in fairness to that guy's training, he gets a knife right in her thigh. If you're going to hire some mercenaries, go to the Emerald Chain. Do you know who you don't go to? Sorry, tangent, but I wanted to say this for a while. You do not go to the Remans. My God, Star Trek Nemesis. The Remans, the most fearsome warriors ever. They were some of the most brutal campaigns during the Dominion War. Cool. Please. Picard with a badly aimed rifle took out half of them. This guy looks like he'd take out the rest of them. It was a cool scene in this one. Sorry for that rant there, and sorry to all the Reman lovers out there. And then you also have the bridge crew are badass in that ready room. First of all, I loved the tapping between Reese and Bryce. I love how it was itself a misnomer. It was a twist. Then you have Owosekon and Detmer just being badasses again. If you could share the captaincy, maybe give it to both of them, I'd be okay with that. Tilly also managed to show what kind of a badass she is as well when she's able to say, basically, those who fall behind, stay behind, which is a bit like, ooh, okay. We also get to see Book and Rin's last stand, which is a bit like, oh no, because this is going to lead to some pretty bold stuff on Osira's part. It was a proper gut punch when Rin got shot. I wasn't expecting that. It was a proper shock. And it's a shock because it's a death with weight behind it. You know, it's the same as if maybe Detmer had been killed. Not that I'm wishing anything bad on Detmer, we love Detmer. But that's the point, is that we like them. Season 3 has been very good for that, for actually making us care about the characters. A little bit better, well, a lot better than Season 1 did, a little bit better than Season 2 did. Season 2, obviously, you've got Pike, and he is wonderful and can do no wrong. But, Rin, we're going to miss you, man. You were a great Andorian, and between yourself and Jeffrey Combs, you've made Blue cool again. Now, that's going to lead into my last point of the episode, and that's going to be a down, unfortunately, and that's, what is the logic behind sending Stamets away? You know, why would you not want to jump the ship away from Federation headquarters if you know that's where the problem is, and if you know that the one thing you don't want is to have the Viridian on your doorstep? Jump away! No, look, it's a lovely emotional scene and there's a great interplay between the two of them, so it's not the scene as a whole, it's just the logic behind the scene. That to me was a bit like, what? I don't know, doesn't really make any sense. Anyway, look, that kind of finishes this episode, right? So I'm going to go into talking about the trailer for next week in a moment, but just before anyone goes, here's a thought. Fierce load of holograms going on, isn't there? join us for the podcast next week, because there's a very interesting theory that we want to go into a little bit of detail on. Now, it is speculation, so Paul, terribly sorry in advance, but there's something behind those holograms, we think. Okay, so the trailer for next week, it opens up with a pan by of the old Discovery. It's really interesting. It's not Discovery A. It's got the old Busar collectors and it's got the old deflector dish. So, okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. We get a shot of Grey in Vulcan makeup. Now, if Grey appears on the planet in a holographic format, why wouldn't Grey be a Trill? Burnham was a Trill, so that's interesting. That's a good question. What are we going to see on this planet? We see Saru talking to Culber. Culber saying you got to take a leap of faith, and it cuts back to a scene where Saru's got his arms around Su'Kal. So they've obviously all introduced themselves. Yeah, okay, so we're very interested to see what's going to go on the planet. Also, TikTok, guys. TikTok, radiation, bad. Now, back at Federation HQ, a lot of bang bang boom boom going on. You've got phasers firing, you've got ships actually seeming to do something, which is quite pleasant. You've got Vance, who is standing beside Cronenberg, going, the Federation is doomed. Okay, thanks for your effort. Now, they have blown a hole in the shield outside, but then you see Discovery getting sucked into the belly of the Viridian and then exploding? Like the Viridian goes boom? Interesting. Not really sure what that's about. We get a shot of Book being tortured. We get a shot of Osira and Burnham having to punch up, because of course we do. And Burnham gets shoved into the programmable matter, which is a bit like, ooh, okay, I can't imagine that's much fun. And then we also get a shot of seemingly the Discovery, well, one of the nacelles exploding, being shucked toward the screen. Looks like it's going to be a lot next week. Now, there is a lot to do. There's a lot to do to wrap up this entire season. So, fingers crossed, guys. Fingers crossed. But everyone, thank you so much for joining us. I want to take just a moment to wish a very, very happy birthday to an essential member of the team. Jen, a very happy birthday to you. Thank you for keeping Chris sane this entire year. You are an absolute legend. Guys, Happy New Year. Look after yourselves. Let's make 2021 a good one. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can find us at TrekCulture over on Twitter. You can find me at Seán Ferrick over on Twitter. Please do get in touch. I love chatting to everyone. In the meantime, guys, live long and prosper, and I'll see you back here for the finale.